Hisham, el.meniawy, and he is a native of Puerto Rico, but is really fascinated and studied a lot of ancient Egypt, which is a real wonderful. And knows about many aspects, art, architecture, temples, tombs, customs of both everyday life and rest life, and ancient Egyptian religion. He studied at the University of Cairo and is employed as a lecturer in Egypt, and as a lecturer in England. el.meniawy-part1.wmv will have a trip to Egypt in January of this year, and we were lucky enough to Hisham as our guide. And Hisham is not only good at imparting information and educating us about things, but he can really put things in context. So, sight and sound of Egypt are just sort of overwhelming, and he was able to make things more coherent. And he's a great guy, so we thought he should come to check.
Thank you. Right, good evening everybody. Well, I met most of you actually before, and let me introduce myself to you. So I hope that within the coming hour, I will cover some of the main points about certain subjects concerning ancient Egypt. We've discussed before art in ancient Egypt and the evolution of construction. We talk today about festivals in Egypt. And I say festivals in Egypt, not in ancient Egypt, because we are talking today about the festivals we are running nowadays in the modern time in Egypt, and how we are relating them back to the festivals in ancient Egypt. Today, just an amazing fact about this country, that traditions are much stronger than religion. Egypt is classified now as an Islamic country. It's like 93% are practicing Islam, which is the Sunni sect, and I guess that in America now you get to hear about Sunni and Shia. Egypt is a Sunni country. Country like Iraq is a Shia country mainly, so in the Middle East there are some countries which are Sunni and or Shia, and some are half and half. But Egypt is mainly an Islamic Sunni, 93% of the population, and about 7 to 8% Christian, what are known as Copts. We'll talk about Coptic religion tomorrow in the church, and that will be a detailed idea about Christianity in Egypt. But we have to go back into history and understand that the nature of Egypt made the Egyptians quite religious. They were very sticking to their land and to their religion and to their belief. So they worshipped more than 2,000 gods and goddesses. But all the way through, although they had that large number of gods being worshipped in Egypt, they believed in only one main God, regardless his name. Some of the names are very famous, like Ra or Amun-Ra, and some are less famous, like Hebrew or Atum. They are all names of the main god of Egypt, who was the sun god. In a country like Egypt, you cannot ignore the sun. You get up early with the sunrise, then you do anything between sunrise and sunset. Sunset, it gets dark, so you go home, get ready to sleep. When you are asleep, it's like a rehearsal for what might happen to them when they die. So sleeping is like being half dead. Then the following morning they wake up from their sleep, and then they start acting again. It's exactly like the sun god or the solar disk, which is traveling in the sky for the 12 hours of the day, and then it sets behind the mountains of the West Bank and then born again the following morning. So regardless the name of the god, but let's talk about him as Amun-Ra. And this is a picture of Amun-Ra here. Amun-Ra had more than one form, animal forms, human forms, and this one is one of the main forms of Amun-Ra. As you can see, is a human figure, and the falcon head with the solar disk on the top of his head. So that was the most common figure of the sun god. We had some other figures of Amun-Ra in the form of a man, and the face of a man also, but wearing a crown with the two long feathers. But this one is even more common to describe Amun-Ra. The other gods, the rest of the 2,000 gods in Egypt, they were like secondary gods. So each one of them was either a local god for a certain area, or he was a god for a certain thing. Like we had a god of creation, the one who is modeling humans and making them out of clay and give them life. The goddess of war, the goddess of love and beauty, the god of the hereafter, the god of mummification. So each one of the gods was in charge of a certain mission. So it's very much like, when we think about it today, it's very much like angels, like different angels, and everyone is performing a certain thing and then reporting at the end to God or to the main God. So the god of creation is reporting to Amun-Ra. The goddess of beauty is reporting to Amun-Ra. So they all work under the umbrella of Amun-Ra or the sun gods. Later in history, Christianity was introduced, but before Christianity, Judaism was introduced as well. As we know that Joseph, the man of the coat of many colors, and the Israelites had certain time in Egypt before the Exodus, so definitely they left an influence on the way people were worshipping in ancient Egypt. Haven't changed the religion, but definitely put sort of an influence on the belief in Egypt. Later on, Christianity was introduced. Officially was introduced by St. Mark in the year 61 AD. And it was very similar to some of the beliefs, as we'll talk some more about Christianity. But definitely Christianity put a stronger influence on the society in Egypt. But I would say that Christianity melted in the society and the belief of ancient Egypt. Then 600 years later, Islam was introduced. In the year 641 AD, the Arabs coming from Saudi Arabia introducing Islam as a religion and Arabic as a language. It took about 4 centuries, from the 7th century AD to the 11th century AD, to change the majority in Egypt to become Muslims. So not immediately at once. It took like 4 centuries for the society in Egypt to change gradually from a Christian society to a Muslim society. From using Coptic language to use Arabic as a main language. So Arabic was never the main language in Egypt until the 11th century AD. Before that it was the Coptic language, which is the latest version of the ancient Egyptian language. The people in Egypt realized that it was a great motive for them to learn Arabic when they are converting to Islam, because when you learn Arabic, they can read the Quran, which is in Arabic, so they can have a better understanding of the Quran. So they could choose between learning the Coptic language, which is a difficult language, and Arabic, and also Arabic is another difficult language, but definitely they chose Arabic because at least it gives them the chance to read the Quran and to understand their religion. The Egyptians in general are quite religious. So Christians are quite religious, religious, and Muslims are quite religious. The way of practicing religion in Egypt is very different. Although Egypt is an Islamic country located in the heart of the Middle East, the way people practice Islam as a religion is very different from the rest of the Islamic world. Again, for Christianity, they created their own sect, which is the Coptic sect. And you only find Coptic sect in Egypt. It was created in Egypt and remained in Egypt. The identity of the Egyptian church, which was one of the main churches at the beginning of Christianity, was the Church of Alexandria, and created its own identity and introduced lots of things to the religion Christianity. So even until now, we find people are sticking to the religion. We find most of the Egyptians are practicing. They go to the church, they go to the mosque, and even if they don't go every day, they go at least once a week. The special events, the special religious celebration, it's a very important issue for the Egyptians, either Muslims or Christians. Also, religion is that strong, either Islam or Christianity, we can still sense and feel the influence of the ancient Egyptian beliefs in the way people are practicing religion nowadays. So, I'll give you a couple of examples. This is like example of some of the carvings in the temples. This is the temple of Komombo, which is in Upper Egypt, and you can see this lady here was goddess Isis in the human form, and she's wearing the tools of a cow flanking the solar disk. This god was the god Betah, and god Betah was the god of the city of Memphis. The god of the city of Memphis was the local god, and he was considered also as the god of medicine earlier on, before they changed the god of medicine later on to be Imhotep. In the temple of Luxor, which is in the heart of the city of Luxor, the temple of Luxor was and still one of the most famous and one of the main temples in Egypt. The temple of Luxor was part of a great complex, which is the complex of Karnak. So, the temples of Luxor and Karnak are dated back to almost 2000 BC, so like 4,000 years old. And when they build the two temples, Karnak is the main one, massive building, and Luxor is smaller, as part of the complex was connected to or linked to Karnak through an avenue of sphinx. So here this carving on the walls of the temple of Luxor, we have the main entrance, the pylon is carved, and the statues, the two seated closer statues of Ramesses II and the four standing ones. That's the main entrance, like described or carved on the walls of the temple of Luxor. The story of the temple of Luxor, that it was dedicated to goddess Mut, and goddess Mut was the wife of Amun-Ra. The temples of Karnak were dedicated to Amun-Ra. Okay, so the husband lives in one temple and the wife lives in the other temple. The distance between the two of them is 2 miles, which is the length of the avenue of the Sphinx. To be safe. So, once a year, the husband used to visit the wife, only once a year, which is a big festival. We call it the Opet Festival. The Opet Festival takes place during the second half of July, 17th to the 19th of July, which is the time when the Nile starts rising and the beginning of the great inundation of the river Nile, which is like a very good sign that they will have lots of water, and then they will have plenty of chances to grow crops, and so it's like a very good sign. So in that day, the priests of Amun-Ra from Karnak, they take the statue, each temple. In the sanctuary, they used to have a statue, maybe this size, not a big statue, not like those big statues you see them outside the temples and so on. Just a very little statue, and it's not a heavy one, so it could be easily carried by one or two. So it's a wooden statue, well ornamented with gold and silver, precious stones and so on. They put it inside a little wooden shrine. They hide the statue completely. They carry the shrine on their shoulders, and they travel down from Karnak to Luxor to visit his wife. Then they put the statue of the god Amun-Ra next to the statue of his wife Mut for 10 nights. Yeah. Those 10 nights known as the good reunion of the two gods. Okay, the Open Festival was the good reunion of the two gods. The 11th day in the morning, they take the statue and put it again in the same shrine, and they travel back to Karnak. That's the end of the festival, right? None of the locals was allowed to see the statue. So the statue must be hidden. What about the priests? The priests were carrying the shrine on their shoulders, but they never see the statue as well. The only people who were allowed to see and touch the statue were the king and the high priests. Only the two of them. And then they put the statue in the shrine, called the priest to come and carry it on their shoulders. Right? This is very important to know about ancient Egypt. But the elite of the society were allowed to attend part of this festival. They come in part of the temple, and it's the open court, and they cannot go further than that. Right? So the inner section is mainly for religious reasons, and the one who's taking care of it was the king and the high priest. Here we have a picture of the procession. So we can see the king in the front. That king, by the way, was Ramesses II. And you can see the priests in their uniform, and the uniform is like sort of a white gown, and sometimes for a high level of priest they have like an animal skin covering also part of the body. That's like a typical uniform of the priests. That's the wooden shrine, looks like a bark, and it is decorated from the front and the back with the head of the god Amun-Ra. The head of the god Amun-Ra here was the ram head. Yeah, he was a ram-headed god. So in Luxor we find them taking this form, a human body and a ram head. That's the shrine where they put the statue of Amun-Ra inside. Okay, so that's documented on the walls of the temple of Luxor. Here another picture showing the king, and he was burning incense and making offerings to the god Amun-Ra and the god Amun-Men. The god Amun-Men is very similar to Amun-Ra, but he was the god of fertility, as you can see manhood here, and he's wearing the two long feathers I told you about. This is another form of the god Amun-Ra. So that's part of the festival during the procession. Here we have a picture showing that they were celebrating this festival also when the Nile rises and the amount of water increases, which is indication of fertility. They were taking boats and they were going into the marshes, and they were doing sort of hunting and fishing and so on. So they are using like little sticks, and we found the original sticks like those, which are displayed now in the Egyptian Museum among the collection of King Tutankhamun. They are very much like the famous boomerangs, and that was used in ancient Egypt thousands of years, I think, before using them in history. That's a later stage of the procession. We are getting closer now to the temple of Luxor, and before they can see the walls of the temple here, so it's like the end of their journey coming from Karnak, and it's badly ruined and badly damaged, you can imagine, because this temple of Luxor is only a few yards far from the river Nile, so over the years was silting up, and the damage caused, especially over the last 40 years, because of building the high dam. And the high dam building up the water behind in the Lake Nasser, building up the silt as well. And that's causing like sort of shortage of silt in the soil in the Nile Valley, and it's affecting the monument by increasing the salinity of the soil. Inside the temple of Luxor, we find something amazing, very strange. This is the mosque. That's the ground level. This is where we walk when we get into the temple of Luxor. So above our heads there is a mosque built much higher than the temple. The mosque is known as the Mosque of Abu al-Hajjaj. Who was this guy? This guy was a Moroccan, and he was traveling through Africa to go to Saudi Arabia, to Mecca for pilgrimage. And that was the route they take when they come from Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. They come this way into Egypt, and they go south to near Luxor. From Luxor they cross the eastern desert, so they can take boats from there across the Red Sea to Saudi Arabia. That was the most common route for pilgrimage about 1,000 years ago. So Abu al-Hajjaj came from Morocco, stopped in Luxor for a while, liked the city like many other travelers, and decided to come back after pilgrimage to settle down in Luxor. So when he came back from Saudi Arabia and settled down in Luxor, he decided to build a mosque. So that was the location of the mosque. Why he built it on the top of the temple? Because then was nothing like a temple. It was almost buried in silt. So that was the ground level. As you can see the door, that's the door here, yeah? So that was the ground level up to here, when Abu al-Hajjaj was in Luxor like 1,000 years ago and built the mosque on the top of the temple of Luxor. Okay? Right. Abu al-Hajjaj is a Sunni, and according to the Sunni sect, we don't believe in priesthood. We don't need a priest to link us to God. We don't need an imam, not like the Shia. So you want to pray to God? Do it. You want to talk to God? Just go and pray. You want to let God talk to you? Just read the Quran. So there is no link. I mean, you don't need anybody to link you to God. God is always there when you need Him. So you don't need any mediator between you and God. That's why it is forbidden to look at anyone highly like an imam or take his word like the word of God, because you have already the word of God in the Quran. And for burial as well, it should be not marked. We shouldn't have the tombs with tombstones or anything like this, according to the Islamic rituals and beliefs. But because we have a very heavy, strong influence from ancient Egypt, so we find that the way they have the tombs and the burial in Egypt is very much similar to the tombs in ancient Egypt. So we have like a tomb built above ground like a mastaba, and underground are the chambers where they have the bodies buried. Okay, so anyway, Abu al-Hajjaj was a good guy. Okay, good for him. But the location of the temple on the top of the mosque on the top of the temple actually led to a fascinating fact, that until today they celebrate what is called el-Mulid. What is el-Mulid? If we translate it, it will be the birthday of Abu al-Hajjaj. They celebrate the birthday of Abu al-Hajjaj, which is completely against religion, against Islam as a religion. Yeah, because you are just memorizing this person, and you shouldn't. I mean, you should think of God. Don't think of anyone else. So the word al-Mulid is used not just for the birthday of Abu al-Hajjaj, but also for all the birthdays of all the famous religious leaders lived long time ago. Yeah, not just this one. During that festival, the birthday of Abu al-Hajjaj, this is like modern pictures. And these are the outer walls of the mosque from the street. So you can look at the crowd, and here you will notice something funny. Look at those little shrines. Those in green cloth. Yeah? These shrines, during the birthday of Abu al-Hajjaj or Mulid, the locals get a wooden shrine empty, nothing inside, and they cover it with green cloth, and then they carry it and transport it all around the city of Luxor, more or less like the route they used to do or used to take when they were traveling with the statue of Amun-Ra from Karnak to Luxor. I bet that the locals do this without knowing that their great ancestors used to do the same thing thousands of years ago. So they just kept doing the same thing without noticing that this is like ancient Egyptian belief. They don't believe in Amun-Ra, they believe in Islam, but they still carry on sort of processions. They never stop, they still carry it. And that's a very good example. I just chosen a couple of examples to give an idea about how civilization is very deep with its roots into Egypt. Here you can see also other pictures, and it tells you actually, I mean, for those been to Egypt, maybe you notice that this is not the common colorful dresses that people wear, but it's very colorful, as you can see. And especially for the children, they wear, it's like Christmas, like Easter, like very special occasions. The people go out and enjoy themselves in the gardens and so on, and doing this sort of procession, and they follow the shrine and enjoy their day out. So here is a closer picture. That's about like 40 years old, and the shrine is carried on a camel. They don't do it anymore because of the traffic, and the city is really busy, and we cannot actually have this on camels or stuff, but they have it on a car, yeah. But this is like 40 years old, and it looks like from the dresses they are wearing as well. Here we get back to the procession and shrine, so you see the similarity. That's ancient Egypt, and that's modern Egypt now. Another big festival in Egypt is called Shem el-Nasim. Shem el-Nasim means the fresh air, or if we translate it exactly in words, so it will be to smell the fresh air. Shem el-Nasim. Okay, Shem el-Nasim is always the first Monday after Easter. Okay, it's not a Christian festival. It's a typical Egyptian festival. Thousands of years before Christianity. Now, they celebrate it all over Egypt. Muslims and Christians, they stick to Shem el-Nasim, or smelling the fresh air. Egypt, although it is mainly a desert, it has been always famous for agriculture, counting on the Nile Valley and the delta. And the main source of water has been always the river Nile. They divided the season into, the year into 3 seasons. The last season was harvest, which is spring. And the end of the year will be July, and then a new year will start with the great Nile inundation. So, harvest means collecting the crops, which means they will have enough food to eat, and they will have enough food to store for the winter and so on, when they don't have harvest. They used to have only one crop a year because it was once irrigation a year, which is in July and August. So this is a picture showing also going into the garden in ancient Egypt, and we've seen this before, but this is a clearer one. And in those days, Hisham and Abu al-Hajjaj, they have some special kind of dance and sort of a folklore dance to enjoy. One of these kind of theme dance is stake dance.